After the awful school shooting in Florida, the media consensus was clear. After all the anger and anguish, nothing would happen, nothing would change. Once again, Washington would fail to act on gun control or just about anything else. But then something a bit unexpected happened. President Trump, a man who spent the campaign talking about the Second Amendment, a man who said that he would not let down the NRA, a man whose campaign got about $30 million from the NRA. In other words, somebody who is pretty deeply committed as a candidate to the rights of gun owners. Well, he kind of broke the script. He said that he had ordered the Justice Department to speed up a process and write regulations that would lead to the banning of bump stocks. You'll recall that there was a big debate about bump stocks, which can speed up the firing of guns after the Las Vegas massacre, because that's what the shooter there used. And the president went further than that. Through the White House, he let it be known that he was open to talking about, for example, raising the age to 21 of people who could buy these assault-style AR-15 rifles like the one that was used in Parkland. And at the same time, he even said he wasn't going to shut the door on possible discussion of assault weapons. Now, that doesn't mean that any of that is going to happen, but it seems to me that Donald Trump, as opposed to a Democratic president who is pro-gun control, a la Barack Obama, who crusaded for gun control, who unfortunately had to deal with the aftermath of a whole lot of awful shootings during his 8 years in office, and who couldn't get Congress to do a single thing, that Trump might be positioned a little differently, that this could be a Nixon goes to China opportunity for him. I mean, the polls show, there's a new one out from Quinnipiac showing 66% of Americans favor some tighter restrictions on the sale of guns. Sometimes there's a partisan split on that, but when it comes to background checks and things like that, the majorities get pretty high. And so it's not that it's an unpopular position, it's just that there's gridlock in Washington, and I don't blame that all on the NRA, which is trying to serve the rights of its members. I blame it on the fear of not just Republicans, but some moderate Democrats, that if they do anything in the direction of regulating guns, they will get killed at the polls. I shouldn't use that word. They will get defeated at the polls by people who care so passionately about gun rights. But the media mood is changing. It's not just a lot of liberal journalists, some anchors who have a kind of demanding some action on gun control. I mentioned last week the New York Post, the conservative pro-Trump New York Post had run a big headline, "Mr. President, please act." Well, here's yesterday's New York Post, "Hope for gun control," based on the president's remarks and the pictures of the protesting Florida students splashed there on the front page. So there is a little bit of a shift, I think, in the mood of the country. It could well be that this will be like past times, that the polls will fade, that the interest will fade, that Congress will drag its feet, that the president won't follow through, or that whatever passes might be so incremental as to be meaningless. But one has the impression, with the president meeting yesterday with students and others been involved, not just in Florida, but in other places where there have been mass shootings, that he senses a moment where he could bring along enough Republicans, he could give them political cover to vote for modest or common sense changes in gun control that, combined with the votes of liberal Democrats, something could actually pass. And I think if he did that, if the steps weren't too onerous and it didn't cause a huge backlash among those who believe in the Second Amendment, that actually the president could share the credit. It could be a bipartisan moment. Now, we've had these discussions before and immigration fell apart, and I'm not advocating what he should do, but I am saying that it looks to me the president is sensing an opening here for him to act in a way that most Republican presidents don't act, and he might be able to do this in a way that a liberal, democratic, pro-gun control president could not. And if that happens, it would really scramble the politics of Washington. But more importantly, it might respond to a public that, while uncertain about exactly what to do, is genuinely just frustrated and heartbroken over all of these mass shootings.